3 days after the HOA banned doghouses, I built my 4-pound Poodle a 2-story Victorian mansion with a turret. By the time the concrete dried and the chandelier lit up, the HOA president was screaming on my lawn, waving her clipboard like a sword, and the police had to tell her to go home. That's how it started, the dumbest, pettiest, most satisfying war I've ever fought. My name's Mark McMichael. I'm a graphic designer, a bit of a perfectionist, and apparently a newly declared enemy of the Sycamore Springs Homeowners Association. My dog, Bartholomew Barty for short, is a spoiled 4-pound toy poodle who wears cashmere in winter and judges everyone equally. The day it all began, he was outside sniffing grass wearing a sweater that probably cost more than my first car payment when I found it the beige envelope. You know the kind. Not just beige, but soul-crushing beige, the kind of color that already feels like bureaucracy. Sycamore Springs, HOA, Architectural Review Committee. Return address embossed. Because of course it was. I didn't even need to open it. I knew who it was from. Brenda Hernandez, our HOA president, clipboard addict, self-appointed guardian of neighborhood harmony. I tore it open anyway. Dear Mr. McMichael, it began. It has come to the attention of the committee that certain structures have been erected in violation of the master aesthetic plan. All doghouses, kennels, or exterior pet shelters are hereby banned. Remove within 72 hours or face a daily fine of $200. I looked across the yard at Barty's house, a neat little cedar A-frame, clean painted to match my shutters, not even visible from the street. He didn't even sleep in it. He just liked sitting on top of it Snoopy style. This is insane, I muttered. Then came a whisper over the fence. She's blaming the petunia. It was my neighbor Gary, 50-something accountant, terrified of confrontation. Her prized petunia for the county fair, he hissed. She says a dog soiled it this morning. She's convinced it was Barty. I laughed. Gary, he weighs 4 pounds. He couldn't soil a dandelion, let alone a flower bed. Doesn't matter, Gary said. She called an emergency vote. Marge and Ted sided with her. It's official. He disappeared back into his yard, defeated. But me, I stood there holding that letter, feeling my blood pressure spike. It wasn't about the doghouse, it was about control. Brenda had been pushing boundaries for months last time she'd fined me for a welcome mat that was aggressively non-neutral. This time, she'd crossed the line. So I poured myself a glass of whiskey, opened the HOA covenant binder, and started reading. 300 pages of legal nonsense, the kind of document designed to make you give up. My dog slept on my keyboard while I learned about mailbox flag angles, garden gnome orientation, and seasonal decoration limits. My sanity slipped with every clause. Then, somewhere around page 240, I found it, Chapter 14, Accessory Structures. It said every homeowner was allowed one accessory structure, a shed, a playhouse or gazebo, up to 120 square feet, 15 feet tall, 2 stories, max. The only condition, it had to be architecturally harmonious with the main house. And Brenda's new rule, it only banned structures for animals. I stared at the page for a long time, and then slowly a smile spread across my face. Barty, I whispered, we're getting you a summer home. The next morning I called Jenkins & Sons Construction. Yeah, I need a quote for a custom playhouse, I said. 2 stories, turret, chandelier. There was a long pause on the other end. For your kid, the contractor asked. Sort of, I said, looking at Barty, who was chasing a leaf. He's hairy, doesn't speak English, and I pick up after him. When Mike Jenkins arrived the next day and saw my sketch drawn on a cocktail napkin, he squinted, then grinned. This is a spite build, isn't it? This, I said proudly, is an art installation about bureaucratic overreach. He chuckled. You want it lit up like a Christmas tree. Brighter, I said. I want pilots to see it. We started Monday morning. 7 a.m., a cement truck backed down my driveway. The beeping echoed through the neighborhood like a war horn. And right on cue, Brenda appeared, neon windbreaker sun visor, clipboard in hand. Mark, she barked, you cannot pour concrete without committee approval. I took a slow sip of coffee. Morning, Brenda. Lovely day. Oh, this. It's not a patio. City permit says it's the foundation for an accessory structure, a shed for my rake. Her eyes narrowed. That's a very small slab for a rake. I only have one rake, I said. She stood there vibrating, unable to do a thing. The city had already stamped the permit. For the next week, the frame rose higher and higher walls, windows a porch, then a turret. Neighbors slowed their cars to stare. Gary peeked over the fence. "Mark, that's a big shed. I have a lot of mulch," I told him. By Friday, Brenda's beige sedan started doing hourly drive-bys. When the turret was bolted on, she actually screeched to a halt in the street. She rolled down her window red-faced. "What is that?" she shouted. That I yelled back is ventilation for the rake. The look on her face could have curdled milk. A week later, it was finished. A deep plum Victorian mini-mansion white trim to match my shutters wraparound porch, and yes, a 12-inch chandelier hanging from the foyer. Mike Jenkins stood beside me, arms crossed. "It's the dumbest, most beautiful thing I've ever built," he said. I picked up Barty, carried him inside, and whispered, "Welcome home, Your Majesty." That's when the real war began. The next morning, a new beige notice was taped to my door. Fine, $500. Violation, unapproved pet structure. I appealed with photo city permit and color samples. 3 days later, fine, $300. Violation nuisance gaudy. I appealed again. Gaudy is subjective, I wrote. Per section 14.3 structure is harmonious. Then came my favorite. Fine, $1,000. Violation, improper use of accessory dwelling, residential habitation. My response: my dog does not legally reside anywhere. Are you suggesting I operate a one-dog boarding house? That's when I started to crack a little. I won every appeal, but it was endless. Beige envelopes stacked on my kitchen counter like a growing tumor. Brenda was relentless, and I started to wonder maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe this wasn't worth it. One night I sat in the living room staring at that ridiculous mansion glowing in the yard. "What am I doing?" I muttered. I built a turret for a dog. Maybe she's right. Maybe I've lost it. Then Barty trotted over tiny paws, clicking on the hardwood, carrying one of those HOA letters in his mouth like a victory flag. He dropped it at my feet, wagging his tail. I looked at him and laughed. "You're right, buddy," I said. "We don't quit." 2 nights later, red and blue lights flashed through my windows. My stomach dropped. I opened the door to 2 cops. "Sir," the older one said, "we got a call about a domestic disturbance." What I blinked. "It's just me and my dog. He's not very domestic, and he's rarely disturbed. Caller claims you're taunting her and running an illegal structure," the younger one added. "Also said your dog is plotting her demise." I stared at them. He's 4 pounds. His biggest plot is figuring out how to reach the cheese on the counter. They asked to see the structure. I led them to the backyard. The floodlights came on. The chandelier inside sparkled. Barty poked his head out from the turret balcony. Both officers froze. Then they started laughing, real can't-breathe laughter. One turned his back to me, shoulders shaking. The other wheezed. "Sir, is that a real chandelier?" "Low-wattage bulbs," I said proudly. Fully code-compliant. The older one pressed his radio. "Dispatch, disregard. No disturbance. It's a dog castle." Yeah, a castle. When they left still laughing, I knew Brenda had overplayed her hand. The next morning, Gary posted a picture of the mansion on the neighborhood Facebook group. Mark's new shed. Within an hour, it had 400 laughing reacts. A local news station called that afternoon. "We heard about a doghouse situation," the reporter said. "Mind if we stop by?" By sunset, there was a camera crew on my lawn. I gave my most innocent, heartfelt interview. I just love my dog and follow the rules. They even got drone footage of the turret. When the segment aired, Brenda also got her moment, a 10-minute rant about vermin and architectural anarchy. The station aired it uncut. The internet loved it. Brenda became a meme. But humiliation wasn't enough for her. She taped a new notice to every door. Emergency HOA meeting. Mandatory attendance subject bylaw. Amendment 14.5. Prohibition of accessory structures for non-human use. She was trying to close the loophole. That Wednesday night, the clubhouse was packed, more people than I'd ever seen at any HOA event. Brenda stood at the podium, face tight, a projector showing a zoomed-in photo of my dog mansion like it was evidence from a crime scene. This monstrosity, she began, voice trembling, as a mockery of our community's values. It's gaudy. It's defiant. It has lighting. A few gasps rippled through the front row. She jabbed a finger toward me. Mr. McMichael has exploited a loophole. This cannot stand. When she finished, I stood up. Hi, everyone, I said. Mark, 422 Sycamore Lane. Quick questions for Brenda. This isn't a Q&A, she snapped. Oh, I think it is. I walked slowly toward the front. Did I or did I not get a city permit? That's irrelevant. Is my structure under 120 square feet? Yes, but under 15 feet tall? Yes. And painted in the approved color palette you personally signed off on last year? She froze. The room was silent. Then Gary stood up trembling. She fined me $200 because my garden hose was coiled counterclockwise. Another woman. She called my grandkids chalk art graffiti. A man in the back. She measured my grass with a ruler. The room erupted. Every neighbor had a story. Years of beige tyranny spilling out at once. Brenda's allies, Marge and Ted, slid their chairs away from her like she was contagious. Finally, Ted grabbed the gavel. Motion to table 14.5 indefinitely, he said. Seconded, half the room shouted. All in favor. A thunderous aye. All opposed. Brenda just stood there, speechless, clutching her clipboard like a life raft. Motion passed. Then Ted cleared his throat. New motion, all future bylaws require a 2/3 community vote. Unanimous. And just like that, Brenda Hernandez, HOA Queen of Beige, was dethroned. Later that evening, I sat on my porch with a cold beer, watching the lights glow inside Barty's mansion. I'd even added a copper weather vane shaped like a poodle on the turret. He was up there on his tiny velvet chaise, looking down like a fluffy monarch surveying his realm. I raised my bottle to him. To the king, I said, "Long may he reign." And that's when it hit me, the lesson. If you're going to live under someone's rules, learn them better than they do. And build your turret anyway.